It's a great outfit.
Picture this. It's the blazing summer of 2025, and on the sun-drenched shores of Ibiza, a figure cuts through the turquoise waves, graceful, statuesque, and unapologetically radiant. Cameras snap like gunfire, influencers freeze mid-selfie, and tabloids scramble to reframe their headlines, because the woman turning heads isn't just another beach beauty. It's Naomi Campbell, age 55 body, carved like sculpture skin, glowing with confidence presence still electric. No entourage, no filter, just Naomi as arresting now as she was in her prime. She didn't come to perform, but she performed anyway. Clad in a micro bikini that left little to the imagination, Naomi dipped into the waves and emerged like a goddess stepping out of myth. The internet ignited. Is she even aging? How does she still look like that? The whispers were tinged with disbelief, awe, and in many cases envy. But what most people missed was this: Naomi never lived to please the world. She lived to rule it. And moments like this weren't accidents, they were declarations. What we saw in Ibiza wasn't just another viral beach moment. It was the culmination of a war one Naomi had been fighting since the age of 15, a war against erasure, racism, industry, bias, gendered expectations, and now ageism. Most women are told to fade gracefully. Naomi, she made aging look like ascension. But behind that sculpted silhouette lies a story of fire. A girl from South London who refused to be sidelined, who carved her place in a world that didn't want her in it, and who rose, fell and rose again on her own terms. This isn't just a bikini moment, it's a legacy making another splash. Naomi Elaine Campbell was born on May 22nd, 1970 in Streatham, a diverse but economically strained neighbourhood in South London. Her mother, Valerie Morris, was a dancer of Jamaican descent, elegant, hard-working and often absent touring internationally with performance troupes to keep food on the table. Naomi never met her biological father. He left before she was born and had his name removed from her birth certificate. In his place stood silence, and a mother trying to fill both roles while chasing her own dreams. That early absence planted a seed of emotional resilience in Naomi. Independence wasn't a choice, it was a necessity. Raised mostly by relatives or family friends while her mother travelled, Naomi's early life lacked stability. She was shuffled between homeschools and caretakers. These constant transitions hardened her. She learned to mask vulnerability, to adapt quickly, and to assert herself in spaces that didn't make room for little black girls. She later spoke about how loneliness shaped her, how she clung to control in adulthood, because so much of her childhood had been dictated by circumstance. But even amid the instability, Naomi's talent couldn't be ignored. She enrolled in the prestigious Italia Conti Academy of Theatre Arts, where she trained in ballet and stage performance. She wanted to be a dancer, precise, expressive, commanding, and she could have been. She had the discipline, the grace. But the universe had something louder in mind. Naomi was different from the start. Not just in her features, the high cheekbones, the wide-set eyes, the impossibly long neck, but in her posture. She carried herself like she was already famous, even when she was just catching buses across London in a school uniform. Her beauty was undeniable, but it was her presence, that silent fire, that marked her for something bigger. At the same time, she was growing up in a Britain that barely acknowledged blackness in media or fashion. Naomi quickly became aware of how the world measured beauty and how girls who looked like her were left out of the frame. She learned not to expect fairness, and she learned that waiting quietly for change was not an option. But there was also joy. Naomi was vibrant, cheeky, a natural performer. She loved music, dancing in the mirror, and mimicking famous singers. She adored her mother, even when Valerie's absence caused deep hurt, and craved her approval. That longing for attention, for recognition, would later manifest on stage and runway in ways both stunning and stormy. By the time she turned 14, Naomi had already survived more emotional upheaval than many adults, but she hadn't just survived, she had transformed. What could have made her retreat instead taught her to walk faster, speak louder, take up space. The confidence, the attitude, the refusal to break these weren't fashion traits. They were survival mechanisms. Fashion just happened to be the stage that would unleash them. And when the moment came, when someone finally spotted her potential, Naomi was already ready. It was an ordinary afternoon in Covent Garden Street, performers, tourists, students milling about. Naomi Campbell, just shy of her 16th birthday, was out with friends after school, her uniform still on her future, still unwritten. That's when Beth Bolt, a scout from Synchro Model Agency, noticed her. It wasn't the first time Naomi had been approached. Her looks were impossible to ignore even at 15, but this time felt different. Beth didn't just see a beautiful girl. She saw something unshaped, raw and volatile potential with teeth. Bolt offered her a test shoot. Naomi agreed. Within weeks, she was signed to elite model management. Her first job was no small break, the cover of British Elle in April 1986. It was rare then, almost unheard of for a black teenager with no experience to land a major cover. But Naomi wasn't a beginner. Not really. She came to the lens like she'd been preparing her whole life. Almost instantly, the industry felt her impact. She wasn't stiff, self-conscious, or overly polite. She moved with instinct, swayed with rhythm, held her face like a weapon. Photographers didn't need to direct her, they followed her. Stylists started requesting her. Runways, the most exclusive and punishing parts of the industry, opened just enough to let her through. But if doors opened, they often slammed shut just as fast. Naomi faced roadblocks her white peers never knew existed. While Cindy Crawford and Claudia Schiffer were heralded as household names, Naomi was cast as the exception, the token. At times, designers simply refused to use her. Agencies would whisper she was too dark for commercial work. Magazine editors would reject her for their most profitable issues, particularly September covers claiming black models didn't sell. She heard it all, she absorbed it, and then she tore it apart. Naomi didn't respond with meek gratitude. She responded with ferocity. She demanded equal billing, equal pay, equal respect. She confronted photographers. She spoke up in castings. If that made her difficult, she accepted the label with pride. She wasn't there to be liked. She was there to be paid and remembered. Her breakthrough came not in London, but across the Channel. In Paris and Milan, she was embraced especially by Azzedine Alaïa, who called her ma fille and treated her like family. With him, Naomi found protection and mentorship. With Gianni Versace, she found the runway as performance. With Yves Saint Laurent, she found history, the man who insisted Naomi grace, the cover of French Vogue, threatening to pull his advertising money unless they featured a black model. These weren't just gigs, they were political acts. Naomi's presence in European campaigns and catwalks wasn't just aesthetic, it was disruptive. She was forcing the global fashion machine to look directly at what it usually ignored. And she did it not by softening herself, but by amplifying every edge, every glare, every stride. By 18, Naomi wasn't merely working, she was reshaping the business. By the dawn of the 1990s, Naomi Campbell was no longer just a model. She was a phenomenon, a walking spectacle of elegance and defiance, a woman whose presence alone could alter the energy of a room or a runway. While most models graced catwalks, Naomi owned them. When her heels hit the floor, the music seemed sharper, the lights brighter, the audience stiller. She wasn't simply admired, she was studied and feared and worshipped. She, alongside Linda Evangelista, Christy Turlington, Cindy Crawford, and Claudia Schiffer became part of what the press dubbed the Big Five, the first generation of true supermodels. But Naomi's inclusion wasn't simply about beauty or success. It was a challenge to the industry's hierarchy. As the only black woman among them, she didn't just stand out, she stood alone. While others posed in Versace gowns and Calvin Klein jeans, Naomi's very presence on a magazine cover or campaign was a statement about race inclusion and visibility. The accolades came fast. Her 1988 French Vogue cover, orchestrated by Yves Saint Laurent in protest of the magazine's lack of black representation, sent ripples through the fashion world. A year later, she became the first black model to grace the cover of American Vogue's September issue, the most coveted cover in publishing. But these victories didn't come from quiet perseverance. They came from Naomi pushing, demanding, and yes, sometimes raging her way into spaces built to exclude her. Designers began crafting shows around her. Gianni Versace, one of her fiercest champions, made her the centerpiece of his theatrical catwalks. Naomi strut down his runway's bold, fast hips, swinging like metronomes of power, became iconic. Her collaboration with Azzedine Alaïa blurred the line between muse and daughter. Karl Lagerfeld gave her prime spots in Chanel shows. Even houses once hesitant to cast black models began to fall in line, unable to deny the force she had become. And it wasn't just the runway. Naomi moved fluidly between fashion and pop culture, appearing in music videos for George Michael, Madonna, and Michael Jackson. She shared magazine covers with legends from Nelson Mandela to Kate Moss. She authored a novel, released a fragrance line, and appeared in feature films. She blurred the lines between model celebrity and brand long before it became the norm. But what truly cemented her reign was her singular walk, a stride that seemed to split time itself, controlled yet wild, feminine yet threatening. Naomi didn't walk like she wanted your approval. She walked like she already owned the place, and you were lucky to be watching. And then there was the attitude, the rolled eyes, the arched brow, the don't you dare energy she wore like perfume. She wasn't interested in being everyone's favourite. She was interested in being unforgettable. At the height of her power, Naomi commanded thousands per show, got first-class flights, 5-star hotels, and full editorial control over her image. She didn't just represent brands, she made them relevant. And yet, she never let the industry forget how reluctantly it had let her in. She held her success like a sword, not just for herself, but for the next girl who looked like her. This was Naomi at full throttle, no apologies, no compromises, no equal. Naomi Campbell was never built to conform. From her very first steps onto a runway, she radiated a refusal to behave, to shrink, to fit inside the rigid mold the fashion industry expected of its stars. She wasn't quiet, soft, or diplomatic. She didn't play the agreeable muse. She didn't make herself smaller to fit the moment. Instead, she made the moment larger by stepping into it fully, fiercely, without apology. In an era that worshipped the blonde, blue-eyed archetype, Naomi emerged like a provocation. Everything about her, her skin tone, her bone structure, her walk, her presence was a challenge to what the industry believed beauty should look like. And unlike others who tried to assimilate to survive, Naomi made it her mission to stand out, to dominate. She didn't just push against boundaries, she bulldozed them. Her defiance went beyond race. It extended into personality. Naomi spoke her mind in an industry that demanded silence. She demanded equal pay when agencies tried to lowball her. She called out racist casting decisions when others stayed silent. She insisted on flying first class when her peers were booked in economy. She didn't see it as entitlement. She saw it as equity. She knew her worth, and she made sure everyone else knew it too. The backlash came fast. She was labelled difficult, diva, volatile. But Naomi didn't flinch. She turned those labels into armor. She flipped the narrative. If being professional meant tolerating injustice, then she was proud to be unprofessional. And if being palatable meant accepting second-tier status, she was happy to be dangerous. She wasn't just rebelling, she was correcting. She became a symbol for every girl who'd ever been told she was too loud, too dark, too angry. Naomi took those judgments and spun them into power. Her very existence in the upper echelons of fashion forced the industry to reckon with its own prejudice. And she knew it. Her activism wasn't performative, it was personal. When Yves Saint Laurent threatened to pull advertising from French Vogue unless they put Naomi on the cover, she didn't just thank him. She used that momentum to push further. She co-founded Fashion for Relief, raising money for global disasters. She spoke out on the lack of black creatives behind the scenes, not just in front of the camera, and she called out publications who used her image but excluded black staff from leadership. But perhaps her boldest rebellion came with time. Naomi didn't fade. She didn't disappear into former model status. She kept walking at 40, at 50, at 55. Each appearance was a middle finger to the industry's obsession with youth. Her Ibiza moment in 2025 wasn't just a swimsuit photo. It was a statement that women could age in public, proudly, visibly, and without surrendering an ounce of power. In a business where careers last 5 years if you're lucky, Naomi's has spanned 4 decades. Not because she was the easiest to work with, but because she was impossible to replace. She didn't just defy norms, she rewrote them. Naomi Campbell's rise was meteoric, but it came at a cost. Behind the dazzling covers, the walk that ruled runways, and the ironclad stare, was a woman constantly in battle, not just with an industry that demanded perfection, but with herself. Her name became as synonymous with scandal as it was with style, and at times, the chaos eclipsed the craft. By the early 2000s, Naomi had become a fixture not only on fashion spreads but in police reports and gossip columns. The headlines were relentless: Naomi throws phone at assistant, Naomi accused of assault again, Campbell ordered to attend anger management. For some, it was entertainment. For others, it was proof she had finally become a caricature of herself, the diva gone mad. But beneath the tabloid spectacle was a deeper truth. Naomi was unraveling. Years of emotional neglect, racial trauma, and career pressure had left her raw. She later admitted that her infamous temper wasn't just arrogance or fame-induced entitlement, it was pain. The little girl who had never known her father, who had been left in the care of strangers, who had fought for every inch of her career, now found herself fighting in boardrooms, hotel suites, and backstages, sometimes with fists, sometimes with fury. Her battle with drugs, particularly cocaine, became public when she entered rehab in 1999. It wasn't the last time. For years, Naomi oscillated between recovery and relapse therapy and denial, isolation, and reinvention. The fashion world, while quick to celebrate her beauty, was not built to support her healing. And when she began to stumble, it moved on quickly and coldly. Campaigns dried up. Runway invitations slowed. For the first time in over a decade, Naomi Campbell vanished from fashion's centre stage, not with a retirement statement, but with silence. No editorials, no perfume launches, no Paris finales, just absence. Her relationships too unravelled. Lovers came and went, some high-profile, others hidden. She dated Mike Tyson, Robert De Niro, a Russian billionaire, but none lasted. In interviews, Naomi admitted she didn't know how to love without control. She feared abandonment so deeply, she often pushed people away before they could leave her. "I was so focused on building Naomi the icon," she once said, "that I forgot how to be Naomi the person." And yet, even in disappearance, Naomi never truly faded. She rebuilt herself in fragments through charity work in Africa, through her fight for diversity in fashion, through mentorship of rising black models. She returned to the public eye not with a runway strut, but with conversation launching No Filter with Naomi, a YouTube series that peeled back her armour. There she wasn't fierce, she was vulnerable. And the world saw her, perhaps for the first time, not as a force, but as a woman. The industry began to soften. She received the Fashion Icon Award in 2019. Designers who once kept her at arm's length now begged for her return. But Naomi came back on her own terms when she was ready and how she chose. No longer the desperate, ingenue clawing for space. She was the legend everyone had to reckon with. And then, as if to remind everyone of her permanence, she did something unexpected. She became a mother. In 2021, at 51, Naomi announced the birth of her daughter. No father was named, no details were given. It was her ultimate power move life, created privately, lovingly, fully hers. So when Naomi stepped into the sea in Ibiza in 2025, toned, top-lined, radiant, it wasn't a comeback, it was a continuation, a reminder that she hadn't gone anywhere. She'd simply been writing a new chapter out of the spotlight, but still in control. At 55, Naomi Campbell stands not just as a fashion icon, but as a cultural force, a woman who has shaped and shaken the industry in ways few ever have. Her presence on the shores of Ibiza, in a barely there bikini, wasn't just a viral moment. It was a full circle return, a reminder, a provocation, and above all, a celebration of survival. Naomi didn't just outlast the supermodel era, she transcended it. While others faded into legacy status, Naomi remains active, visible, loud, and undeniably relevant. She's now both blueprint and benchmark. Her walk is still unmatched. Her name still opens doors. And her story still inspires, because it's far from finished. Her decision to become a mother in her 50s broke yet another rule the world tried to impose on women. She didn't announce it with a glossy magazine spread. She posted a simple photo, baby feet in her hand, and let the silence say everything. She's raising her daughter her way, privately, independently, without validation from press or public. A full circle for a woman who once longed for parental stability, now becoming the pillar she never had. In the fashion world, she's more than a legend, she's an institution. The new generation of models, Adut Akech Anuk Ye, Precious Lee, don't just thank Naomi. They stand on the space she carved for them with blood, grace and fury. Runways are now multicoloured. Magazine covers are now more inclusive. Naomi didn't do it alone, but she was first and she was loudest. Her activism continues from refugee support in Kenya to education campaigns in Africa. She uses her name to lift others, and when she walks a show now, it isn't for the check. It's to remind everyone who still owns the room. As the waves of Ibiza curled around her that day, Naomi didn't just look radiant, she looked eternal. Because for all the headlines, heartbreaks and history, one truth remains. Truth remains. Truth remains. Truth